Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Beitzah Daf Lamed Gimel. We're going to begin on Lamed Gimel with Aleph, the third line from the top with the words Tana Rabbanan. Before we do that, just as a clarification, in yesterday's Daf, I said V'chein Bedeles, which of course is supposed to mean the support with the use of doors. So let's now continue. Tana Rabbanan. Ein Soim Chenes HaKadera B'vikat V'chein Hadelas. A person is not allowed to, as we mentioned, put a pot on two pieces of wood, and also not on a door. Because the purpose of wood is only to be used for fire, and not to support a pot. Rav Shimon Matir, Rav Shimon says that this is okay. Rav Shimon Matir. We mentioned the machlokas at the end of our Mishnah, whether or not a person is allowed to guide an animal with a stick. So Lemar Belez Rav Shimon Kavua Svirle, the Lesle Muksa. Apparently, he must hold that there's no issue of Muksa, and that's the reason why, in this case, he was Matir. He held just like his father. Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon, of course, his father was the Rashbi, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Lo, Rav Shimon Mishum Nemexik Kaman De'ozl. The issue has nothing to do with Muksa. The issue is it looks like you're bringing it out into a marketplace, and because of that, that is where the issue potentially could arise. Now the Gemara continues with a completely different discussion regarding Chazra, which is a type of a branch. The Rashi says it's af eitz shuchad k'chaytz. It's very sharp, just like a thorn. And because of that, you could actually use it to stick meat into it, and to use it almost like a shvud, like a spit for roasting. The question is, are you allowed to? Because again, we said just now, you're only allowed to use wood for fire, not for any other purpose, like supporting a pot. So is this an issue? Because you're using it not really for firewood. You're using it to cook meat. Rav Nachman asked Rav Sheshes Shari, so we have a machlokas. So it depends. Bertiva, if this piece of wood, this branch, is wet, in that situation, because it's not meant for firewood, because you're not going to use it as firewood, so therefore it'll be aser, because it's wet. The machlokas is if it's dry. As we said, the whole purpose of wood is for fire, and therefore for making a fire, and therefore this isn't acceptable. You're not to use it as a spit. What's the difference if you throw it into a fire, or you're sticking into a fire anyway by its coals? In other words, either way, you're doing the same thing. There's really no difference. It's still going to end up being used as firewood, but you're also using it to cook at the same time. Some say, no, if it's dry wood, it's not a problem, because it's being used anyway at the same time as firewood. The question is if it's wet. So mandi aser the reason why is because it's not fit for fire. If you had a very big bonfire, even one little moist piece of wood still would have benefit. The hilchasa yivish shari retivta aser. The halach is it depends if it's wet or dry. Says Rashi, hach hilchasa alibidaman de isle muksa akava avol anan krav Shimon svirule. So this whole discussion of the halacha is if you hold that there's an issue of muksa, but we hold like Rav Shimon, bein b'muksa bein b'davar she'enu mischaven u'Rav Yehuda the machshiri oichel nefesh b'kul sharu. We say that everything is allowed. Okay. Weiter. Dorish Rava. Isha lo techanis ladir ha'etzim lito mehen od. A woman should not go into a storage house to get wood and to use it as an oud. So it doesn't really discuss what this is, but Rashi tells us it's a piece of wood. Lasos oud latanur. It's like a poker to be able to stoke the flames in a fire. And the taima mishum delo nosnu el hasik. Again, wood is only used for a fire, but it's not unless the Rashi says elim kein dasa kli mebo yom, unless you designate it before Yom Tov. Since you didn't do that, it's not allowed. So you cannot do this. But if let's say you have a poker that broke, you're not to use it as firewood on Yom Tov. Because as we saw in yesterday's daf, you're allowed to throw into a fire kalim, but not shivri kalim, not a kli that broke on Yom Tov. So Meimer, you're trying to tell me the Rabbi Yehuda Svirle, Tisle Muksa must be, you're telling me that he holds that there's an issue of Muksa. But Holy Merle Rabba, we found that Rabba doesn't hold a Muksa. We found that he said Lashami to his servant, Tabili Bar Abza, as we saw in yesterday's daf, go and prepare for me and cook this bird, this goose, for Shadi Maya Lashunra. And as far as the innards, take the Maya, take the innards, and throw it to a cat, says Rashi. Hishlech b'nei mayim l'chatul. Take the innards and give it to a cat. Rabbi Yehuda aser l'taltalo. Rabbi Yehuda would not allow this to give it to a cat. Because this food, this bird, was only fit, and its purpose was for a person and not for a dog, and therefore he says that if it wasn't already, didn't die as an avela before Yom Tov, it's aser. If it died before Yom Tov, so then you'll say, okay, I'm going to give this to my animals. But since it was not dead, it was something which was fit to be shechted and prepared, so therefore it was only for a person, not for an animal. So he wouldn't have allowed this. So here we see he doesn't hold him. He doesn't hold a muksa. How do we say that he holds like the Shita Rabbi Yehuda? No, Hassan over there, Ivan the Mitzarchi Me'esmo Daitalel. Because he knew that if he would just leave it around, it would end up being spoiled. Therefore, his das was also on this. And therefore, his intention also was to give it to the cats. So therefore, the truth is, he really does hold a muksa, but this is something which he had in mind. Next Mishnah. Rabbi Lezer Omer. Noitel Adam Kisem Mishal Afanav. A person is allowed to take a piece of wood, like a splinter piece of wood, a toothpick, and that's the purpose, lichtseisbo shinav, in order to clean the meat which is stuck in between your teeth. So you're allowed to use this and take it off. Umigaviv minachatzer, you can actually take gavi. Rashi says some of these twigs, which are dakin mikashim, they're thin, they're hard, and you can take them to light with them. Umadlik shekol mashibachatzer muchanhu, everything that's found in your chatzer, in your courtyard, is prepared, and therefore you're allowed to use it. Rashi says, however, well, let's finish the Mishnah. You could use the twigs that are in front of you in light. Says Rashi, mina chatzer, from the courtyard low. Hoyel v'dakin, because they're so small, the tayrich l'kaishashan me'esmo, it would have been difficult for you to gather them up from yesterday. Level hakikaima, you did not have intention for this. And Rashi says, Yitol ella l'hadlik. The whole purpose of taking it is for lighting. The l'nosno ella hasaka, that it's all for a fire. Okay, and with Tarti Pligi, they're talking about two things. Okay, we'll understand this better when we get to the Gemara, exactly what this is talking about. So let's continue with the Mishnah. Ein moitzian esa or, a person cannot create a new fire, v'lumin ha'etzin, not with wood, v'lumin ha'avanim, stones, v'lumin ha'afar, earth, or ashes, v'lumin harafim, not with tiles, v'lo min hamayim, and also not with water. So Rashi says you put water into a glass cup. There's a whole procedure how one could make a fire with that. So you're not allowed to do that. We'll discuss at the very end of today's daf why not. V'lo min rafoyim, v'lo min hamayim. So the ein melavnin es harafoyim litzos behen. A person's now to light up these roof tiles in order to roast with them. Okay, and the Gemara is going to explain the reason with regard to that. Rabbi Yehuda, as we continue now to Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, says as follows. Now when it comes to oichle behema, things that are fit for animal consumption, Rashi says, for example, kash, straw, alikanim, various branches. Ein behen mishum tikun kli. There's no din of like you're fixing something, and therefore Rashi says umuter lichtaim lisakin kashel shavolim b'shabbos lichtzais shinam. So you can take a piece of straw and you can pick your teeth with it. It's not a problem. You're not doing anything wrong. Okay. Eisvei Rabbi Kahana Rabbi Huda. So he asked the question. V'tatlan atzi b'samim l'hareach behen. A person's allowed to walk around with these spices in order to be able to smell them. L'hainif behen l'chayla, or to revive someone who is sick. For that matter, umoylel, a person's allowed to roll it between his fingers to be able to get more of a stronger smell. A merechbo, you can smell with it. However, below yitemenu harechbo, you're not allowed to break off the branches in order to be able to smell from them. V'im kaktmoi, if you did, patavel aser. We say that you didn't violate an issa d'oraisa, you're not chayav chatas, but it's aser to do. So why not? So Rashi says, gezerah to lisi l'kaitmo, we don't want you to end up breaking off lichlitz boshinav, to break it off to pick your teeth. The hasam kli mishavile. There you're mamash making into a kli. V'iki sura deraisa. So that would be an issa deraisa. But if you're just doing it, again, you're breaking off the branch. You want to do it to smell, so that's a gezerah, because you may end up breaking it off in order to actually use it as a toothpick, which is issa deraisa, because you're making a kli. And this is going to be obviously part of the question. Lichlitz boshinav, if it's to pick your teeth, lo yiktamenu, you shouldn't break it off. Im kat mechayev chatas. So Amalei, so he said back, Hashta pater aval aser kakashali. You're asking me the question regarding that it's whether or not it's allowed. So chayev chatas meboy. So over here on Shabbos, we're saying that it's even mamash in Isser D'Oraisa. Says Rashi, v'yesh atzi b'samim shein oichle behema fil hachi chayev. So in this, the Gemara says as follows: Eloki tanya hahi b'kashin. So the question is like, how could we, it seems like such a quantum leap. It's mutter, and then we ask the kasha on mamash totally aser. So he says like this, that when we're talking about kashin, we're talking about hard branches. So kasha b'nei malil, and in who? How could we be talking about hard branches? You can't roll them with your fingers. This is how you read the whole thing. Moilo umarechbo. You can roll it and smell it. Kamto umarechbo. You can break it off to smell it. B'medvar murim barakin. If it's soft, then you're allowed to do that because it's like edible. But if it's hard, then don't do this, even if you're doing it for the smell. Because it's hard, so you're not supposed to break it off. But if you do, it's pater aval aser because of a gezerah. Because something which is soft, you're not going to use as a toothpick. Something which is very hard, you may. Therefore, lichlit boshinav lo yitemenu v'im katmu chayav chatas. So Tani Chada, Kainto Merechbo, one place it says you can break it off to smell, but Tani Idach Loik Nemenu Merechbo, one says you can't. So in order for the purpose of smelling, are you allowed to break it off? So Omer Abzera, Omer Abchistalu, Kasha Habarakin Habakashin. It depends what it's for. If it's soft, then it's not a problem. You could break it off to smell. However, if it's kashin, as we said, then it's not allowed because then it's an issa d'Rabbanan of a gezerah, because you may end up using it to for a kli to pick your teeth. Maska bar Acha bar Yaakov. So bekashin amai. Well, why are we being so strict over here if it's a strong piece of wood? So maishna mahadit nan. How is it any different from that which we learned? It says that shayra adam es a if a person can break a barrel, lechma minu groigris, in order to be able to eat the fruits, the figs inside. Well, eventually, your only intention has to be that you don't want to make a kli. So the question is, why are we being so strict that we say you can't do it? Why would the Rabbana make a gezerah? You're not being mischaven to make a kli. So therefore, as Rashi says, mi geizer Rabbanan b'kshem mischaven l'kli Otu Meschaven, they wouldn't make such a gezerah. So v'od. Furthermore, Haravam bar Rav Ada, V'Rabin bar Rav Ada, they both say, Ki havin be Rabbi Yehuda, when they were there, Havi Mavshach v'yoivle alusa. He would break off the branches from Eitz Gadol, from a very large branch. The Yoiv one, and he gave it to us. Now, Afa Gab Chazi Lekatata Dinargi V'Chatzini, even though it's really fit for an axe or to be used as a pick. So the question is, it was hard, and because they could have been used as a handle for an axe, nonetheless, he did it. So Chayra, it's not an issue, even if it's hard. So when we say it's hard, it depends on who you hold like. The Sanya. A person can take a piece of wood to pick his teeth. You're not allowed to do it only from a trough of an animal. The Shaman Shayitimenu, they both agree you shouldn't break it off. If let's say you broke it off to pick your teeth, or to open up a door, the Shagig din on Shabbos Chayv Chatas, B'mezid b'yamtiv Sevgas Arbayin Devar B'lezer, because that's mamish, and according to him it's a Siduraisa. According to the Chachamim, it's only a Durabanan. Rashi says, Tikatima tikun koyachar yadhu. This is like in an indirect way. Now the Gemara clarifies the bottom line. When he normally says that you're chayav chatos hacha pater avol aser, over here he's going to say it's pater avol aser. Rabbanan the ka'amri hasam pater avol aser. Rabbanan who go a step lower hacha mutal chatchila. Doesn't he hold, again, you can break open this barrel to take this food? In other words, they just don't have the kavana. So Amar Ravashi Kitanyahi bimustaki. We're talking about a barrel that is Rashi's chavis shabura. It's an already broken barrel, and therefore for that reason it's not as much of an issue. It says the last line in Rashi, Kibandu Ra'uahi, since it's like weak, Lekla Migzar, but Shalonis Chavan Lasos Kli. You don't have to have a gazer over there, because you're clearly not mischaven to make a kli, because it's a barrel which is kind of like broken, and it's not something which you can really use anyway. So the whole leniency over there is dafka in that situation. Okay, now let's see a couple of questions. Question 11. Ha'im muter liktoim eitz kasha. Does a person like to take a hard piece of wood to break it off, kedei shehei reichu noidef, for the smell? So, according to Rabbi Lezer, he says yesh b'chiyuv d'oraisa. There's an iser d'oraisa when you're mischaven to break off a piece for your teeth. So therefore, according to him, he would hold it's a gezer d'rabanan, the gozel harech oto lachleitz, that you're not allowed to even break it off for smelling, because you may end up doing it for the purpose of your teeth. The Rabbanan says there's no Isser D'Oraisa, even to break off for their teeth, therefore he's not geyser when you're mischaven hareach. So again, that's a very important breakdown of that halacha, that the din is a machlokus when it comes to what degree. Is considered to be an Isser D'Oraisa to break off for your teeth, or again, it's considered, as Rashi says, it's kliyach yad. It's not considered to be like a normal form of breaking off a normal toothpick, and therefore it's not an issue. Okay, at least midiraisa. So it's only the rabbanan. So therefore the hareach is mutter. But if you hold an issa d'oraisa to break it off for your toothpick, then it would be an issa d'rabbanan. There would be a gezerah even l'hareach bo. So that's how we explain this. Okay, TB10. He'im mutter liktam atzibasamim. Telushim, are you allowed to cut off a piece of wood, again, which is already detached, kidil haitzirecham, in order to smell it. So if it's rockin', if it's soft, everyone holds it's allowed. If it's kashin, that's where the machlokas Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer says no. The Chachamim say that it is mutal lechatchila, it's totally allowed. Okay, let's continue with the Gemara. The Gemara now continues the next part of the Mishnah, the Megaviv min hachatzar. You can take these twigs, even from the part of the courtyard, which they may be small pieces, it's still allowed. Turn about Megaviv min hachatzar umadlik, you can light it up. Shekol ma shebechatzar muchanhu. All of the stuff that's found in your courtyard is fit to be used as firewood. Uvad, provided shoyasa siburin. A person should not make them into piles, because then it indicates that you really don't want to use it for Yom Tov. You're just collecting it. Rabbi Shimon Mater, he says you can even make it into piles. So Mamai Kamifli, Marsavar Mechsi, the one who sees it appears to come Machnef Lamachar Yamachrina. Why are you gathering it up? You're not using it for firewood now. You're doing it in order to be able to preserve it and to save it for another day. So you're not allowed to be moving wood, which is really muksa, unless you're using it for firewood. But if you're just moving it to store for a future day after Yom Tov, it's not allowed. Your pot will disprove it, that it's really for Yom Tov. The fact is, you are going to then make it into a pile, but then afterwards you're going to take it for cooking, and therefore it's allowed. A person, as we said, is now to start off making a fire, and this is actually TA8. Ne'ezatam isser also l'hoitzi or min eitzim b'yamtiv. Why are you not allowed to initiate and to start and create a new fire with these different things? Because it's considered to be moiled, starting something anew. Ad kan.